I am Martha Ellen Brooks. I am 94 years old, and I've lived my whole life in a quiet farming town in Tennessee. The same front porch, the same dirt road, the same evening sun falling across the fields. Folks around here say I've been blessed with long years, but I don't believe in luck anymore. Because death, I've learned, doesn't suddenly arrive one morning. It moves in slowly, hidden inside ordinary routines. First it steals your sleep, then your peace. Then one day your body feels older than your years, and everyone calls it natural aging. I have buried my parents, my sisters, my neighbors, and even the man I planned to grow old beside. After every goodbye, I kept asking myself the same question. Why did their time end while mine continued? It wasn't fate. It wasn't bloodline. It was the small daily habits they held on to, even when those habits were quietly draining their strength. So over the years, I began removing certain behaviors from my life, not adding complicated routines, just letting go of harmful patterns. Today, I want to share the first truth I discovered. For most of my life, I believed comfort came from a full stomach. Supper ended the day, but it never truly ended. There was always something after. A slice of pie while the radio played, a handful of crackers during a late conversation. Sometimes just eating because the night felt long and quiet. It felt harmless, almost caring, like I was treating myself kindly after a hard day. Yet every morning told a different story. I would wake up heavy. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes, the kind that follows you all day. My hands felt stiff, my thoughts slow, and even small chores seemed larger than they were. I blamed age. Everyone does it first. But one evening, sitting by the kitchen window, I asked myself a simple question. What if my body spends the whole night working instead of healing? We think sleep is rest for the body. Truth is, night is when the body repairs damage, balances hormones, and clears what the day has left behind. But it cannot clean the house if the stove is still burning. So I changed one habit, nothing else. When the evening settled, eating stopped. No matter how small, no matter how tempting. After that hour, only water or warm tea. The first week felt strange. My mind kept reminding me of old routines. The second week, my sleep deepened. By the fourth week, mornings felt different, clearer, lighter, almost familiar to my younger years. I hadn't eaten healthier food. I had simply given my body time to finish its work. Many people wake exhausted not because they lack sleep, but because their body never received rest. Digestion continued all night, and repair was postponed until morning, when life demanded energy again. Hunger at night is often habit, not need. I didn't shorten my meals. I lengthened my healing. Sometimes the smallest boundary creates the greatest relief. There was a time when silence felt like surrender to me. If someone spoke unfairly, I corrected them. If someone believed something foolish, I challenged them. If someone misunderstood me, I explained until they did. I thought I was protecting truth. In reality, I was sacrificing peace. Arguments rarely end when voices stop, they continue in the mind. I would lie awake replaying conversations, sharpening responses I never got to say, imagining how I could have explained myself better. The person I argued with slept peacefully, yet my heart kept racing long after the moment passed. One afternoon, after a heated discussion with a neighbor, I noticed something unsettling. Neither of us had changed our mind. We had only strengthened our pride. That was the moment I understood. Most arguments are not searches for understanding. They are performances of certainty. So I tried something unfamiliar. The next time words grew sharp, I listened, and then I let the silence remain. No correction. No defense. Just a calm nod and a change of subject. At first it felt uncomfortable, almost unnatural. But something surprising followed. My chest stayed calm, my evening stayed peaceful, and the conversation ended instead of echoing inside me for hours. I began choosing carefully. Is this discussion worth my heartbeat? Because every argument demands a cost. Tension in the body, restlessness in the mind, and emotions carried long after the moment is gone. I learned that protecting my energy did not mean abandoning my values. It meant understanding not every mind is waiting to be changed. Wisdom is knowing when words will build connection and when they will only build distance. I didn't stop speaking my truth. I stopped forcing others to accept it. And strangely, the quieter I became, the lighter my days felt. Chapter 4. I stopped living in the chair, expanded. I never considered myself an athletic person. I didn't run marathons, lift weights, or follow exercise programs. In my generation, movement wasn't scheduled. It was simply part of living. Yet over time, comfort slowly replaced motion. Chairs became softer. Tasks became easier. Days became quieter. I watched it happen closely. The man I loved enjoyed his recliner. Morning coffee turned into hours of sitting, and hours turned into routine. He wasn't lazy, he was comfortable. But comfort has a way of stealing strength without announcing it. Year by year, small abilities faded. Walking distances shortened. Breathing became heavier. He would say, "I'm just getting older," and we both believed it. After I lost him, the house felt too still. And in that silence I understood something painful. The body weakens faster from lack of use than from passing time. So I made a decision. I would keep moving, not intensely, just consistently. I walked while thinking. I stood while talking on the phone. I tended small plants even when they didn't need tending. I carried groceries one bag at a time just to make extra steps. Movement stopped being exercise and became a language my body remembered. The human body behaves like water in a stream. When it flows, it stays clear. When it sits too long, it grows stagnant. Within months my joints felt looser, my balance steadier, and my breathing calmer. I hadn't grown younger. I had simply stayed active enough to avoid growing weaker. People often wait for motivation to move. But the body doesn't need motivation. It needs repetition. I didn't train harder. I just refused to stay still longer than necessary. And slowly I realized, aging isn't only measured by years lived, but by how often the body forgets movement. There is a kind of weight no one else can see. It doesn't bend your back, yet it exhausts you. It doesn't bruise your skin, yet it aches every day. For years, I carried hurt from someone close to me. Words were said that could never be taken back, and I held onto them like proof that I had been wronged, proof that my anger was justified. I replayed the moment in my mind over and over, polishing it, sharpening it, keeping it alive. I thought remembering protected me from being hurt again. But something strange happened. The person I resented continued living normally. They laughed, slept peacefully, and moved forward with life, while I remained tied to a moment that no longer existed. I realized resentment works like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to fall ill. One quiet afternoon, after years of distance, I decided to release it. Not because they apologized perfectly. Not because the past changed. But because I no longer wanted my future chained to it. I spoke simple words. I forgive you. The relief was not dramatic. It was gentle. That night my thoughts were quieter. Days later, my chest felt lighter. Weeks later, the memories stopped visiting me uninvited. The body remembers emotional pain long after the event ends. The heart cannot rest while the mind keeps reopening the wound. Forgiveness does not rewrite history. It removes its power over today. I didn't excuse what happened. I freed myself from reliving it. And in doing so, I learned peace is less about justice and more about release. For many years, nighttime in my house ended the same way. The world's noise followed me into bed. I would sit in the dim light listening to reports of disasters, arguments, and endless troubles far beyond my reach. I told myself I was staying informed, being responsible, keeping aware of reality. Yet when I lay down, my mind refused to rest. My eyes were closed, but my thoughts kept moving, replaying problems I could not solve, imagining dangers that were nowhere near me. Morning never felt refreshing. It felt like I had worked all night inside my own head. One evening I noticed something simple. The last thing I gave my mind became the first thing it processed while I slept. So I made a quiet change. An hour before bed, the noise stopped. No alarming voices. No heated debates. No worries borrowed from distant places. Instead, I chose calm endings, reading a few gentle pages, sitting in stillness, sometimes whispering a prayer, sometimes just listening to the night outside my window. The difference was gradual but undeniable. My breathing slowed sooner. Sleep deepened. Dreams softened. And mornings arrived without the heaviness I once carried. The brain continues working long after we fall asleep. Whatever enters it before rest becomes its overnight task. Feed it chaos, and it rehearses fear. Feed it peace, and it restores balance. I didn't change my mattress. I changed my final hour awake. And I learned that rest is not only about closing your eyes, it is about calming what you place inside your mind before darkness arrives. For most of my life, I believed being good meant always being available. If someone needed help, I said yes. If someone needed time, I gave mine. If someone needed listening, I stayed. Even when my own energy had long run out. People appreciated me for it. They called me dependable, generous, kind. And I wore those words proudly, even while feeling quietly exhausted. My days became full, yet strangely empty. I noticed something uncomfortable. The more I gave without pause, the less of myself remained. I was present in everyone's life but absent from my own. My rest felt guilty. My free time felt undeserved. One afternoon, after agreeing to something I deeply didn't want to do, I sat alone and asked myself a question I had avoided for years. When did kindness start including the neglect of my own well-being? So I practiced a small, unfamiliar word, no. Not harshly. Not angrily. Simply honestly. At first it felt unnatural, almost selfish. But the reactions around me revealed something important. The people who truly cared understood immediately. The ones who only benefited grew distant. And with that distance came relief. Energy is a limited resource. When you spend it everywhere, you live nowhere fully. I didn't stop caring for others. I stopped abandoning myself to do it. Boundaries did not make my life colder. They made my relationships clearer. I could give sincerely, because I was no longer giving endlessly. I learned that a life given entirely to everyone else slowly disappears. And sometimes the most responsible act is protecting the strength that allows you to keep living at all. For many years, I believed life would start later. After responsibilities eased. After work slowed down. After the timing felt right. I postponed small joys without noticing, visits, trips, conversations, even simple pleasures. I told myself I was being practical. There would always be another season, another year, another chance. But time never speaks before it leaves. Plans stayed written in notebooks while days around them quietly passed. I saved good clothes for special occasions that never arrived. I delayed phone calls to people I loved because tomorrow seemed guaranteed. Then tomorrow failed to appear for someone close to me. And in that moment, the illusion ended. Life was never waiting for the right conditions. It had been happening while I prepared for it. So I changed something simple but powerful. I stopped postponing living. I visited sooner. I expressed affection immediately. I celebrated ordinary days instead of saving happiness for milestones. Nothing about my years increased, yet every day felt fuller. The present stopped feeling temporary and started feeling sufficient. We often treat time like a promise when it is only an opportunity. Waiting feels safe because it avoids risk, but it quietly steals experience. The perfect moment rarely announces itself. It exists only when accepted. I didn't begin living recklessly. I began living presently. And I understood at last, a long life is not measured only by years survived, but by how many moments we truly allow ourselves to inhabit before they pass.